Hello guys, welcome to my next episode. Today I'm talking about Trek Supercaliber. Some of my viewers were telling me, Danny, why don't you tell something about Trek Supercaliber? This was a huge announcement, huge news, and some info were leaking throughout the 2019 season about this super bike. This damper was covered on Yolanda Neff's bike, and everybody was kind of talking about it. Well, the marketing here was very strong, and I'm always super cautious when there is some strong marketing, because when the product is strong, you don't need that strong marketing. But of course, marketing is something you need on this planet right now. And I'm not saying that this bike is bad, not at all, but I would not buy it, and here is a couple of reasons. The simplest reason why is it so is that this bike will cost you a lot of money, and unlike Trek say that this should be super light, much lighter than the traditional full suspension cross-country bike, it just isn't. So for those who don't know what this bike is, I would just call this one a simplified full suspension bike, because this is not just a soft tail. Soft tail would have, let's say, up to 30 millimeters of travel, maybe more. This one has 60 millimeters of retravel. It is simplified, more about that in a minute, and it should be way simpler, so lighter. Well, the highest model, Supercaliber 99 AXS, will cost you, let's say, I think the weight is given for the highest spec, so that's 1100 guys, 1100, my goodness, I'm not gonna cut this out. $11,500. $11,500. Yeah, I know I know how much it is. I have the comparison, but yes, this is a lot of money. And the weight of this bike is 9.4 kilograms on the medium size frame, with no tubes, just with the tubeless sealant. So 9.4 kilograms. This is super light. This is very light even for a hardtail. But let's just compare for some bikes we really know. For $12,000, I'm sorry, this is really expensive. $12,000, so $500 more, you have 100 millimeters of travel. So it's like a, let's say, normal, so to speak, cross-country bike, which will be much better on the tough terrain, and which also have lockouts and even 3-position lockout. The weight of this bike is 9.5, which is actually, we can say, which is pretty much the same. We don't know for what frame is that, probably from medium with the tubes, but tire sealant and super light tubes should be similar weight, so roughly the same, a little bit more money. But this is Scott, this is Nino Schurter's bike, not the exact spec, but this is bike which is well known, so pretty much same price, pretty much same weight, but 100 millimeters of travel. There is huge difference between 160 millimeters of travel. I'm gonna tell you more about it just in a minute. Now, Cannondale will lose here the fight, because for $11,000 the high mode World Cup bike will go over 10 kilograms. But I just want to tell you, I was comparing different bikes. Giant Anthem will be close. The most expensive one, $12,300. And it will be under 10 kilograms, but just look at this. KTM Scarp Sonic, my friends, will weigh 9.6 kilogram, which is 100 grams heavier than the Scott. It has 95 millimeters of the retravel, and its price is 7,400 euros, which is approximately $8,200. 8,200 versus 11,500. So there is a huge price difference. KTM Scarp will be only 200 grams heavier, but you can easily go under Supercaliber's weight by just adding some cool stuff. Like the wheels of this bike are the DD Swiss 1200. which are the highest carbon stock DD Swiss wheels, their weight will be 1411 or 13 grams. 1411 grams. You can buy super duper carbon wheels, that will be, let's say, 1200 grams. And then you have same weight as the Supercaliber, 95 millimeters of travel instead of 60 millimeters, and the linkage. And so let's go to the next argument why I wouldn't buy Trek Supercaliber. It's been also very strongly said on the paid articles about this bike that it has no linkage, so there is no rocker here, so less parts. And that's true. But this linkage, this rocker right here, this one here, on those bikes is made of carbon and it is super light, so that's one thing, so you don't shave much weight here. And yes, you've got one additional pivot which Supercaliber doesn't have, so yes, it is simpler, but it still has to have the assembly for the damper, both front and rear right here, because this is assembled to the top tube. And also this thing, the swing arm, which is like a stanchion here, is quite huge, which adds weight. And also it will have this anti-rotational pivot, so additional part right here, so you don't really shave that much of a weight. And not having this linkage here is also a disadvantage, because by constructing different linkages, this bike, like on this bike right here, the engineers have the chance to play with the characteristic of the damper of the whole suspension, which is impossible here. So this is one of the reasons why this bike has only 60 millimeters of travel. It's not easy to set up. Thus, you have, I think, 3 tokens you might use in order to have it harder, softer, not to bottom out and so. But not having the linkage, which is super light and just adds one additional pivot, is not a super advantage. I would say it's not an advantage. I would like to have a linkage here and have the characteristic exactly made for the cross country. So let's say Scott Spark, it will have 3-position lockout, fully opened, trail mode, and then fully firm. And this one will be either open or firm. 60 millimeters of travel. Okay. Now, one thing I want to tell you, like for this bike, defending these 60 millimeters of travel, I would not say that 60 millimeters of travel is simply too little for a cross-country bike. It's not, because I was racing this bike. This is the first generation Cannondale Scalpel, which had 67 millimeters of travel, 110 millimeters at the front. And I never complained about having too little of travel. I was riding some very difficult trails or marathons, very difficult. Some rocks where people were having problems going, like walking down with the bike. I was riding on this one. Then in 2009, Canada added some travel, and so from 2009, for Canada at least, there is this standard 100 millimeters of travel at the rear. So most of the cross-country full suspension bikes will have 100 millimeters of travel. This KTM, for example, has 95. So that's the difference. So 60 millimeters is not too little. The problem is that this is 60 millimeters without the linkage, so less chance to get the right characteristics that you actually need. And so we can say that this is a very light bike, extremely expensive. I understand, and I read all these reviews which like copy and paste that it took 3 or 4 years of development, and there are pictures of some frames which show different designs. I understand that, and I admire Trek for coming up with new stuff. They not only analyze what's on the market, and follow, but they lead. But this bike, in my opinion, is not worth the money. And if I ran the team of pro riders, cross-country riders, and my sponsor said, okay, which doesn't matter, the money is no object, just tell me what bikes I should buy for your team, I would not choose this bike, because I could build lighter bike with 95 millimeters of travel. Let's say it will be probably a little bit less stiff than the Supercaliber, but still, these bikes are now stiff enough for cross country. So this is it. Trek also says very strongly that there is no pivoting here at the rear, so this is lighter, simpler, and more stiff. But since like 2009, Cannondale doesn't have it. Scott Spark now doesn't have any pivoting at the rear. Of course, the newest generation of Scalper doesn't have it. Giant Anthem doesn't have it. This KTM doesn't have it. Let's say Merida 96 has got it. I was just comparing that you can also buy 9.85 kilogram Merida 96, very efficient bike for $8,000. So this is pretty much it. Let me know, guys, which bikes for way less than $10,000 and weighing about 9.5 kilograms you can buy as a full suspension for cross country. Maybe we could talk about some even more interesting, more interesting brands we can bring to the discussion. But Supercaliber, I'm sorry, I wouldn't buy this bike because you can build lighter, less expensive bike with more travel. More travel gives you the option to adjust it better for marathon, for cross country, and you have like 3-position lockouts are amazing nowadays. So this is it about the Supercaliber. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.